Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a really rich stack of sources, all from July 14, 2025. Think of it like a snapshot of just one day, globally and here in the U.S. And our mission? Well, it's simple. Go past the headlines,
Yeah.
pull out those crucial nuggets of knowledge, the key insights specifically for you. We're covering, gosh, everything from, geopolitics and trade, right through to amazing science breakthroughs and the really harsh realities of extreme weather. So get ready, because I think we're going to find some unexpected connections, maybe some facts that'll surprise you.
That's exactly right. The goal here is to really dissect these events, look at the context, the implications, the patterns underneath it all. So by the end, you should feel genuinely well informed, but without that feeling of just being completely buried in information. We're here to connect the dots for you.
Okay, good. So to start, let's maybe dive into that high-stakes world of international relations and trade. July 14th, it saw some pretty significant moves from the U.S. president. We learned President Trump met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, announced a new U.S. Patriot missile system package for Ukraine.
Yeah.
But what really jumped out at me was that this wasn't entirely U.S. funded.
Right.
European partners like Germany and Norway, they're actually chipping in. What else came out of that meeting?
Well, there was also this rather dramatic 50-day deadline issued to Russia for a ceasefire in Ukraine and the threat. Severe tariffs, maybe up to 100% if that deadline isn't met.
Wow, 100%.
Yeah. President Zelensky in Ukraine, well, predictably, he welcomed the missile support, called it a lifeline, actually. Moscow, though, they dismissed the whole tariff threat, called it political posturing.
Okay.
But the really striking thing here, I think, is that EU officials are apparently already bracing for retaliation, counter tariffs.
Right.
And analysts, they're warning this kind of ultimatum. It might actually just harden Russia's stance, could lead to wider economic fallout. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these tariffs, these threats, they're not just tactical moves. They really signal, I think, an acceleration towards a more fractured global economy. Where nations might increasingly prioritize maybe self-sufficiency over that interconnected trade we've seen, which ironically could actually weaken, not strengthen, domestic resilience in the long run.
That's a critical point to consider. And it didn't stop there, did it? Beyond just Russia, Trump announced a broader 30% tariff, this time on Mexican and EU imports, starting August 1st. And that's already, prompted strong reactions. EU officials, Canadian leaders threatening their own measures, warning these tariffs would, quote, kill trade, and could even push allies to look for new trade deals that bypass the U.S. completely.
Exactly. And the economic tremors, well, they're already being felt. U.S. futures actually fell after these announcements. Our sources are saying the U.S. overall tariff rate has now hit a historic average of 20.6%.
20.6%?
Yeah, that's the highest it's been since 1910.
Wow, since 1910.
It's staggering, and experts are warning about potential GDP growth erosion, definitely increased inflation, serious supply chain issues, and maybe most importantly for people listening, a sharp fall in real household income for consumers. That's a huge impact, right in your wallet.
Indeed, yeah, a direct hit. And it's not just about direct tariffs, is it? There's also news swirling around Russian oil sanctions. We saw shipping rates for Russian Urals crude, that's from the Baltic ports heading to India. They actually fell a bit. Went from around, $5.5 million down to about $5 million per Aframax tanker. Those are those mid-sized tankers, right?
Yeah, common for those long-haul crude shipments. And that drop was because there was more charter availability under the current price cap, the $60 per barrel cap. However, traders warned on July 14th that the EU's next big sanctions package, the 18th one, is expected. And it could lower that cap maybe below $45, which could quickly reverse that cost drop.
Yeah.
So this brings up the question. If the caps tighten significantly, it could get much harder for exporters to find shippers. Shippers willing to risk secondary sanctions.
Those penalties on third parties.
Exactly. And that would likely mean higher freight costs, tighter crude markets overall, and renewed oil price volatility.
Okay. So while all these, economic chess moves are playing out, it's crucial we don't lose sight of the human cost. The human cost of conflicts, which our sources from July 14th also really brought into focus. There were reports surfacing about deep internal disagreement within Israel, about a plan to relocate Palestinians in Gaza to southern humanitarian cities. And military officials themselves reportedly warned this proposal sounded a lot like forced displacement or even concentration camp setups. Civilians, rights groups, they immediately warned about violations of international law, risks of ethnic cleansing. The government, though, defended it, saying it was just a temporary measure.
Yeah, and adding to that picture, coverage from NBC News and PBS highlighted testimony from a doctor based in Gaza, describing mass child casualties, starvation, and echoing those claims about Israel planning concentration camps for displaced people. The interviews also mention a leaked ceasefire draft from back in April 2024, allegedly shelved to maintain internal political power.
Right.
Now, Israeli officials, for their part, they strongly denied this camp allegations, called them propaganda. But this whole situation, it just lays bare the complexities, doesn't it? International law, humanitarian aid, these deeply, deeply different interpretations of conflict strategies, and it really underscores how vital impartial reporting is on these incredibly sensitive topics, especially when you have such conflicting views and, frankly, immense human suffering. We saw global outcry calls for independent investigations, UN resolutions, new pushes for humanitarian corridors.
Yeah. And while those human conflicts are reshaping lives, July 14th also served as a powerful reminder that nature's forces are escalating too, really challenging our infrastructure, our resilience, globally. We also saw a few other geopolitical flashpoints flare up, like a ceasefire was declared in Suwaida, southern Syria. That was after fierce clashes between Druze fighters and Bedouin tribes that killed dozens. Syrian government forces intervened.
But the underlying distrust, it's still there, signals how fragile any peace is in that region.
And closer to home, ISE conducted large-scale raids on farms in California, detained 300 workers. And there was one tragic fatality during the operation. Eyewitnesses described just chaotic scenes, families separated. It's reignited protests, calls for immigration reform.
Yeah.
So as we look at all these events, the question for all of us, for you listening, is how are these extremes, both human and natural, reshaping our daily lives? Take Europe, for instance, gripped by this historic heat wave since late May, temperatures soaring into the 40s Celsius.
Unbelievable heat.
Yeah, multiple national records smashed. Spain, Portugal, France, the UK. The UK alone, nearly 2,300 deaths linked to the heat just since late June. Hosepipe bans extended, wildfires raging in Greece, Catalonia, linked to the heat, the drought. And utilities warning about infrastructure failing, roads buckling, rails warping, healthcare systems just pushed to the brink.
And then you flip over to the other side of the Atlantic, Texas Hill Country, normally arid, right? Slammed by catastrophic flash flooding in early July. The worst in a century, they're saying.
Century?
Yeah, rivers like the Frio, the Guadalupe, just rising incredibly fast, affecting towns like Uvalde, San Antonio.
Yeah.
The death toll, just tragic. Over 130 fatalities confirmed, including dozens of children. And over 100 people still missing as of the 14th. The National Weather Service had extended flood watches. And the common thread, maybe, between Europe's heat and Texas's floods. It's not just the extreme weather itself. It's the realization, I think, that our existing systems, our infrastructure, our emergency response, they're just fundamentally unprepared for this new climate reality. It really forces a complete rethink of how we approach disaster preparedness.
That's a really profound point. And the Texas disaster, it was made much worse by those wildfire burn scars from 2024. Can you just quickly explain how those burn scars make flooding worse?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite straightforward but devastating when you have these really intense wildfires. The heat essentially bakes the top layer of soil. It strips away vegetation and creates this hydrophobic layer. It repels water almost like concrete. So instead of the ground soaking up the rain, even moderate rain, the water just sheets off incredibly fast as runoff. And that leads to these sudden, devastating flash floods, which is exactly what we saw in Texas. And we saw similar dynamics playing out in New Mexico, too. The Ruidoso region, still recovering from its own 2024 wildfires, they faced deadly monsoon flooding, killed at least 3, damaged hundreds of homes. Again, blamed largely on that burn damage, reducing the soil's ability to absorb water.
Right.
And on top of all that, red flag warnings were issued across huge areas. Nevada, Idaho, Utah. High winds, low humidity, dry fuels, raising fears of new, fast-spreading wildfires across the West. There was also intense criticism aimed at FEMA and Homeland Security. Reports that thousands of emergency calls from those Texas flood survivors just went unanswered.
Unanswered.
Yeah. Apparently following a decision not to renew call center contracts right before the flooding hit. So that sparked, as you can imagine, fierce debates about preparedness, government responsibility, where the funding priorities really lie.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so from these really pressing challenges, global conflict, climate, let's maybe turn our gaze toward solutions, towards the future. July 14th was also a day of some genuinely exciting breakthroughs in science and tech, hinting at how fast our future could change. What were the standout innovations that caught your eye?
Well, certainly the news from MIT. Researchers there achieved a world first with a compact tokamak fusion reactor. Now, a tokamak, that's that donut-shaped device designed to contain superheated plasma for fusion.
Right.
They managed to sustain plasma for 30 seconds with a net energy gain.
Net energy gain, that's the key, isn't it?
That's the absolute key. It's the crucial milestone. It means the reaction produced more energy than was put in to start and sustain it. That is the holy grail for practical, clean, potentially inexhaustible energy. It's huge.
That's truly remarkable. Genuinely remarkable. And what about quantum computing? Anything there?
Yeah, in parallel, actually, IBM showcased what they're calling the world's largest quantum processor, boasting, get this, 11,121 qubits.
Oh.
Now, qubits are the quantum version of traditional bits, but they can do vastly more complex calculations. And this processor demonstrated the ability to entangle quantum states across 3 separate nodes, linking them in ways impossible for classical computers. That multi-node entanglement, that's really key. It hints at a future quantum internet, which could potentially revolutionize everything from cryptography and logistics to medicine discovery.
Okay, fascinating. And beyond those sort of foundational breakthroughs, we also saw some pretty significant shakeups in the AI industry, didn't we?
We did.
Meta, for instance, acquired a 49% stake in Scale AI. That's the data labeling startup. And its founder, Alexander Wang, he actually joined Meta. Adobe released a powerful new AI image editing tool. AMD bought an AI software startup. Linda Yaccarino stepped down as CEO of X, formerly Twitter.
Right, ending that turbulent period.
Yeah. This whole scramble for AI dominance, it feels like it's entering a new phase, focused on talent and data for training models. It's really going to shape the tools and the information that you interact with every single day.
Absolutely. And we also saw some really remarkable medical advances reported on the 14th. A landmark report showed a CRISPR-based therapy for sickle cell disease. It functionally cured several trial participants, eliminated symptoms, transformed lives. I mean, this breakthrough could genuinely pave the way for treating a whole host of other genetic illnesses.
Incredible.
And then for migraine treatment, real-world data was published on intranasal zavegepant, showing significant pain relief, improved daily functioning for acute migraine attacks, fast onset, fewer side effects. It's being called a game changer, although, access and insurance coverage, those remain hurdles.
Always the challenge.
Always. And the WHO endorsed lenacapavir. That's a long-acting injectable PEP treatment for HIV prevention. Doctors Without Borders, MSF, they emphasize that widespread access, especially in low and middle income countries, is absolutely critical to ending the epidemic. They're calling for pricing reforms to prevent, an inequitable rollout. And these advances, they do raise important ethical questions, don't they, about equitable access, about the long-term societal impact, who benefits, how do we make sure these breakthroughs reach everyone who needs them?
Yeah, vital questions. And finally, just quickly, in space exploration.
Yes. NASA unveiled the closest, highest resolution images of the sun ever taken. These came from the Solar Orbiter spacecraft during an unprecedented flyby. This could help explain some long-standing solar mysteries, like why the sun's corona, its outer atmosphere, is hotter than its surface, or how solar storms form. It really heralds a new era of solar physics. It's the kind of thing, like you said, that felt like science fiction not long ago.
Exactly. Okay, let's broaden our lens just a bit more now. Societal trust, global markets, culture, some other perhaps surprising events from the 14th. First, that delicate issue of trust in our core institutions. In Germany, authorities opened a trial. A senior physician accused of murdering 15 patients.
15.
Yeah, by administering lethal doses disguised as treatment. The case has, understandably, deeply shocked the public, prompting calls for much stricter oversight, better whistleblower protections, transparent medication audits in hospitals.
Yeah, the deeper issue there, it really gets at the systemic checks and balances we need to maintain public trust, especially in critical institutions like healthcare. It's just a stark reminder of the immense responsibility we place on professionals in those positions of power. And, well, what happens when that trust is catastrophically broken?
A sobering thought. Okay,
Yeah.
on the global business and markets front, India's Life Insurance Corporation, LIC, huge entity, country's largest insurer, over $600 billion in assets.
Yeah.
They appointed R. Doraiswamy as their new CEO and managing director. He's expected to focus on digital expansion, rural access, product innovation, improving solvency. Meanwhile, back in the U.S., the S&P 500 kept trading near record highs. buoyed by strong earnings, particularly energy and industrials, steady consumer spending, some optimism about eventual interest rate cuts.
Yeah, but what's really striking there is the noted disconnect between those financial market highs and the real-world economic pain in places hit hard by, say, the floods in Texas. Market strategists are definitely sounding cautious, warning valuations look stretched. The risk of a correction is rising, especially if these tariffs start to really dampen global growth. It's fascinating tension, isn't it, between that market optimism and the very real challenges people are facing on the ground.
It really is. Okay, moving towards culture, resilience celebration. Qatari-American artist Sophia Almeria won the prestigious Frieze London Artist Award. Her work responded to the theme Future Commons, exploring identity, technology, the politics of imagination. Really highlighted diversity and experimentation in contemporary art. And across the channel, Paris celebrated Bastille Day, France's national holiday. Record-breaking military parade, incredible Eiffel Tower fireworks,
Yeah.
a real show of renewed national spirit, featuring some new aerospace and defense tech, too. And for entertainment and sports fans listening, Warner Bros. And James Gunn's Superman reboot, big hit, grossed $217 million globally in its opening weekend.
Wow, third largest of 2025.
Exactly. Critics praised the storytelling, the visuals, gave DC some renewed confidence against Marvel, perhaps. And in the Tour de France, Stage 10, Bastille Day, was the first big mountain test. Simon Yates won the stage. And Irishman Ben Healy actually grabbed the yellow jersey from Pogacar, setting up a really tense battle for the overall classification.
Exciting stuff for cycling fans.
Definitely. And finally, just one last item, a reminder of nature's raw power. Southern Spain experienced a 5.2 magnitude earthquake near Andalusia's Almería airport, caused some structural damage to the terminal roof, prompted safety checks. Thankfully, no fatalities reported, but definitely a stark reminder of the seismic hazards in the Mediterranean and that ongoing need for updated building codes.
Yeah, always something.
What an incredible range of events, all packed into just one day, July 14, 2025. We've really touched on everything, haven't we? Macroeconomic implications of trade wars, the profound human cost of climate change, the absolute cutting edge of science redefining our future, and the resilience of the human spirit through it all. This deep dive, we really aim to give you not just the facts, but those interconnected insights, the things that make knowledge feel powerful and relevant.
And we certainly hope it did. So maybe just a final thought for you to consider, given this accelerating pace we're seeing of both global challenges like climate, like geopolitical instability, and these incredible breakthroughs in science and tech, how does your own understanding of how interconnected all this is shape your preparedness, your engagement with the world around you? Something to mull over. Keep exploring these themes because there's always more to learn, always more dots to connect.